let's talk about track today. This is a nice standard 00 track, and as you can see, it's got nickel silver rails and plastic sleepers. The thing is, it all comes in yard lengths generally. If you're buying FlexiTrack, it's going to come in a yard length, and that seems to be how track is always sold in the UK. Peco, Hornby, they all do it in yard lengths. So unless your layout is specifically designed around yard lengths of flexible track, you're going to have to find a way of cutting it. So a quick look at the track itself. The rails are a specific height, and that's denoted by the code. So in this case, this is code 75 track, which is a fairly fine scale rail height. Code 100 is a little bulkier and more appropriate for mainline model railways. You get up to much larger codes, 200-300 for garden railway style track. Basically, the bigger the number, the fatter the rail you're going to deal with. Underneath, the sleepers are plastic, and they're held apart with what we call webs, little bits of plastic. And with FlexiTrack, some of these webs are cut through, so you can bend the rail and you can see that the webs either close up or open out depending on how far you've bent it. The thing is, when you bend the rail, the outside rail is much shorter effectively than the inside rail, so you're going to have to cut the inside rail to get a nice clean joint at the end of the track. And so that's what I'm going to look at today. This is my micro baseboard. As you can see, it is literally just a length of track pinned to a piece of wood. It's not completely useless. I could use this as part of a sort of photo plank, or perhaps I could varnish the wood and make it something nice for a locomotive to stand on. What it does have is it has track overhanging the ends. So let's look at how we can cut that back. First thing to look at is the wrong tool. This is a junior hacksaw, and it is very much the wrong tool for doing this, because the teeth, even though they're quite fine, are still fairly large compared to the rail size, and the chances are it's going to catch and drag the rail around. Now the rail is only held into place with little plastic rail chairs, so once the rail's pulled with any hardness, those rail chairs are going to pop, they're going to break, and you're never going to be able to fix them again. Sometimes you can bodge it with a bit of glue, but the truth is the track's never quite the same. So you need to use the right tool for the job. If you want to use a saw, you're looking at something like one of these little X-Acto saws. You see these at the trade for model railway shows all the time, different length, different depth blades. They all generally fit the same sort of handle, and you're looking for the finest teeth you can possibly get your paws on. All you do is just put your finger against it there, carefully saw away, and you can see, because the teeth are very small, there's not much side pressure on the rail, and so the rail chairs should survive, and your track will still be just as strong as it was before you attacked it with a cutting tool. I do tend to put my finger quite hard on the rail itself, just to make sure it's got that little bit of extra support. The blade itself, very fine, and you shouldn't have any problem working there. Okay, there we are, and we're through the rail. So far, so manual. That is a great tool, and you'll do a few rails quite happily with that one. But for speed, I prefer a set of these. These are Xuron track cutting clippers. They're about £16 at a show, and they are specifically designed for this job. They're very, very clever. They're designed, the way the blades come together means that they will last quite a long time, but they've got a flat edge there and the non-flat edge, and if you clip the track with the flat edge, and before I do that, safety note, put on some eye protection, because there are going to be bits of stuff flying off all over the place. Safety note, just clip off the track there, and I'll just finish the job there. And what I've got is I've got a nice clean track end, really, really nice clean cut. I don't really need to do anything with that. So these are especially good if you've got your 1 yard length of flexi, and you just need to trim it roughly to length. But if you can get at it, and you do need to be able to get, certainly pushed quite hard down into the sleeper. These are great, and you will get a really nice clean edge there. If you don't get quite the clean edge you want, I do say have a small file kicking around, because the really important thing is you don't want a burr. If you've got a little burr at the end of the track there, and this especially happens if you've been sawing it, the trains will bump as they find that little bit of metal. So I tend just to chamfer off the edges just at the joint, and that should ensure that the train runs from a piece of track here onto a new piece of track without any bumping. But this isn't the only time you want to cut track. Sometimes you just want to cut one rail, because if you want to isolate, say, this end of this track from that end of that track, if you put a cut in that rail there, then the electricity can't flow from one to the other. You could put a switch between wired to either side of the cut, and that means you can switch on the power into one length of track. But it does mean you've got to put a cut in the middle there. Now, you can sometimes get in with the saw, but that's a little tricky, because you can actually see here that to get a good angle on it, I've got to go through the baseboard. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to cut through the baseboard. So what I need is a different tool. And the tool for that is a slitting disc. This is a carbodium disc that fits into a little mandrel here and into a power tool. Turn the power tool on. This is the sound, if I'm honest, of most model railway clubs as people are cutting away and attacking the track. This is a very, very useful tool, but these blades, whilst they're not actually sharp, what they're going to do is grind through the track. What they are is fragile. Bits of blade will fly off. They just will. It doesn't matter what you do. You're going to occasionally they break, and bits of blade fly off. And so definitely some eye protection on there. And I know some of you are going, well, I'm wearing glasses anyway. Eye protection is still really important. If you're thinking yourself, well, don't need it, just think about the price of your glasses and if they get a scratch on them. These things are about £1.36, I think I paid for these at a builder's merchant. So easy to get hold of. Anyway, be a bit careful with the tool. Turn the cutter on and carefully place it onto the track. There we are, job done. Straight through the track. Now the downside of this is that is actually quite a big cut there. It's probably about 1.5 millimetres wide, but that doesn't usually seem to bother certainly 00 trains, and I've found actually with the finer scale stuff it doesn't seem to worry it too much either. Just make sure that the rail is supported both sides of the joint with good strong track chairs, and you'll be fine. And you can be cutting away with this stuff to your heart's content. I'll just trim the ends of this here. There we go. There we go. And I didn't have the tool all the way up. Trimmed off nicely. This is an area where I definitely will want to trim the burrs down, and also on here just feel along the track to make sure there's no burr. There isn't one, and I'd rather not file on top of the rail because it just puts scratches in place that can hold dirt. So there we have it. Cutting track is really simple. It's something we're going to do all the time, but it's really simple as long as you've got the right tools for the job. Pick your tool and off you go.